How's it going, everybody? Slavic Telly here. Just want to go over a few questions that came up after I posted the video of the Tanto Kukri, my latest knife build. So I'll be going over your questions, and I got them on the sheet here. So here we go. So the steel that I used is a 1075. It's a high carbon. It will rust if you don't oil it. So just keep it oiled, and your high carbons will not rust. Also, the steel is a 1/4 inch thick, and I believe it's 7 millimeters thick for those my European friends and people that use metric system. Overall length is 17 inches and 43 centimeters long, and the blade itself is 16 inches, which is 27 centimeters. How long did it take me to make this knife? Well, I started it on October 4th and posted the video on December 3rd, I believe, and so basically that's about 2 months, but 2 months. So the leather sheath took about 2 weeks to make, but it actually took 3 to 4 days to make. But because when I gave the knife to my friend, his Instagram is Willie Mandela. When I gave the knife to him to make a sheath for it, it was the week of Thanksgiving, so the leather store was closed and he couldn't purchase the leather that I wanted the sheath to be made out of. So the store was closed for a whole week. So that's why it took 2 weeks for me to wait for this leather sheath. But so yeah, it took about a month and a half to make this knife. And when I say that month and a half, it doesn't mean that I spent every single day working on it for a month and a half. I have a day job, and when I come home and I have spare time, that's when I work on my knives. So the other reason why it took so long is because right now it's winter time, and the sun goes down early. So around 4 o'clock, 4:30, it's already dark outside. So it's kind of difficult to make a video when it's dark outside. I tried to use lights, but still the video quality of the image is not the same as if it was sunlight outside. So that's why it takes so long. So basically I tried to put in all my work on a Saturday from morning around 10, 11 o'clock till after the sun goes down. So that's when I work on my knife. That's the time I find to work on a knife. So let me go over the challenges that I had making this knife. So as you saw, I started with a belt grinder, and I tried to take off as much as possible, and then I went to the file jig, the one that Aaron Gott made, and basically I'm still not good at on a belt grinder. So if you see a knife that was made on a belt grinder, those guys are pros. They know what they're doing. So it takes time to learn. I'm learning. But anyway, I still wanted to show you that all my knives are finished using a file jig and file. So those of you that are maybe bummed out because you don't have a belt grinder and stuff, you could still make a knife using a file jig. It'll just take you a lot longer, but it's doable. I've done it, I'm still doing it, and so can you. So let's talk about the bevels, or no, let's talk about the design of the knife. This knife, I tried to put as many curves as possible. So if anywhere you look, there's a curve. Even this part is curved. This little section is curved. This one is curved. All throughout the handle. Even I tried to put little details in the handle. Curved. Inside is curved. So when there's a lot of curves in the blade, it makes it more difficult to finish, to hand sand, but it makes a knife really, really beautiful. The other thing that was difficult on this knife is the bevel. So if you look at the bevel, it has this width going, and then it goes much longer width, has a much longer width. So what that makes is that the angle, the slope of a bevel here is different than over here, and over here. So it's sloped like this at this part, so I'll hold it like this. So at this part it's sloped like this. When it comes here, it's sloped like that. When it comes here, it's even more, has a less slope. When it comes here, it goes back. So trying to keep different slopes going through the bevel and trying to maintaining this line right here was a very challenging part. Also, on the clip, if you look at it, it's thin, but it comes to a thick point. So you have to transition from a, I don't know if you could see it, but the slope right here, and this is the slope here. Oh, so to show you, the slope is like that, then it comes to here, then like that, and then goes back again. So that was the challenging part for me. Also, a lot of people ask this question, have you ever made mistakes while making a knife? Oh yeah, plenty. But I try to fix them. If I grind the bevel a little bit too high on one side, I'll go back and raise the other side higher. On this knife, this part right here, it didn't match with this side. So when you looked from this direction, one line was like that, and on this side it was like that. So I had to go back, paint it all blue, and redraw all my bevels and all the angles. And that's where I noticed that one side I ground a little bit higher, or filed a little bit higher than the other side. So once I fixed everything, everything matched. So let's see. Let's talk about the handle. I've tried something that I've never done before, which is putting angles on when you glue the handle. So let me show you. So when you go at 45 or whatever angle and then you glue them, what happens is, let's say if you glue the handles like this without them being angled. See, this is angled at 45 degrees. If you glue them like this, different types of scales or handles, this line right here will not wrap around the handle. This curve will not appear. It'll just be a straight line that goes across the handle. But I wanted to have a curve in it. If you could tell the way it wraps around and meets over there, and it wraps around again, and then it curves here. So that's what happens when you do that, when you go 45 degrees. So it was something new for me. I've never done it and I like it. The main thing is that you gotta have the centerpiece match exactly with both sides. If you don't, these lines will not meet together. So that's why when people say, have you messed up? Yep. Good thing I had more scales or handle maple burl scales, and I basically wasted another piece off of this one. So because I messed up on I made one part, and then when I started doing the other part, I didn't get the right angle and I ground out too much, and then I couldn't match them, so I had to go for another one. So with that said, I get my this is ironwood. I get it from Ironwood Man, yep, on Instagram. So basically when he posts the scales, you bid on them, and the highest bidder gets them. The red or pink, I think it's pink, a reddish pink, maple burl. It is from Bexar Co. Blades, same thing on Instagram. When he posts them, you don't have to bid on them. You just tell him, I'll take them, and they're yours. Whereas on Ironwood Man, you bid on them and the highest bidder gets them. and you have a certain amount of time to bit. The other thing that I started doing was I had a suggestion on YouTube. When you heat the knife in before you quench it, so you got the flame here, let's say, or like on mine I have a forge, so I have a flame that comes from above. Move it and heat it, then flip it over and heat it from both sides, and then so this way you get an even heat on it. Then when I read up somewhere that if you quench blade up, the sharp point up, the blade will not warp as much as if you quench it with the blade down. And I started doing that, and I had a lot of luck with it, or success. So maybe a little tip for you guys. So another thing that I wanted to mention was that when working with ironwood versus maple burl, the maple burl is a lot softer wood than the ironwood. And when you have to finish, you know, nice and flat with the decorative pin or Corby bolts, it makes it a challenge, because the Corby bolt or the decorative pin is a much harder material than maple burl. So you'll have a tendency where you'll sand it and you'll have a little hump where the decorative pin is, because the maple burl will sand much faster than decorative pin, whereas on ironwood it felt like no matter how you sand, it stayed consistent and nice and flat, because the hardness of the brass or the decorative pin was the same as ironwood. So I just wanted to point that out for if you plan to work with the ironwood. And it kind of gave you more time to work with it, because every time you hit it with a file, it wouldn't shave off as much as it did with the maple burl, where I was working with a file and oh wow, I almost took off too much, you know, where this one gives you more time to work with when you're shaping it. Just wanted to point that out. Decorative pins. I buy them from USA Knife Maker or knifemaking.com, and they come in various sizes and shapes. Some of them are expensive. This is the one I used on the knife, and let's see. Some of them come in little pieces, so it depends what length you want to order and how much money you want to spend on them. And so basically, to sum it up, the bigger knife, the more you have to finish, the more it takes to sand every little nick and cranny. More work goes into it, more labor. But I like this knife. It came out pretty nice. I'm stoked about it. And here's the leather sheath for it. I drew up the design and gave it to my friend, and this is his logo. And he went off of my sketch and, you know, redid whatever he needed to so it would work with the knife. So on the last note, a lot of people ask me a question whether they can buy a knife from me. I only sell in USA. I don't want to say I had bad luck with the previous sell that I had, the British knife maker, the British soldier, the knife that I made for him. I sold the knife to him, I got paid, I shipped it out to him, and never heard from him. So some other countries have different laws where I have to have a license in your country to sell a knife, and I don't have a license, so that's why I don't mess with selling knives to other countries. And also some people see one of my knives and they want that knife. I try to make only one knife of each model or style, and then I want to move on to a different kind of knife. And why do I say that? Well, if I make a second knife like this and it takes me a month and a half to make, well, guess what? that knife is going to be exactly identical. It's going to go to somebody else, and I will not have the time to make another knife, a different style, the one that I could post on YouTube. So that's why I try not to make the same knife and post it again or sell it to somebody, because I'm not gonna have the time to make a different style for you guys to watch. So with that said, I try to go with different styles every time I make, and I sell only those and move on to the next knife. So thank you very much for following my channel. Thank you for watching, and thank you for all your comments. They're awesome. Keeps me going. And take care. I'll see you soon. Goodbye.